A collapse will occur, that is a certainty, but it will not happen overnight. Today, we will discuss the Euro viral contagion that is spreading globally. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We're going to get into Greece. First of all, there is a major crisis that is occurring. It is spreading throughout Greece. We saw exactly what happened with collateralized debt obligations, the asset-backed securities, and specifically for Greece with the credit default swaps that brought the nation down. Of course, there are many reasons, but it was the CDS or credit default swap that was a major reason why Greece suffered so much and the wider Eurozone. So let's get into this. Greece's banking sector is likely to be back on life support from the country's central bank as savers take their euros out of accounts amid fears of a new crisis. Now, they can spin it how they want in the Telegraph, but I will tell you that that is called a bank run. When people are worried about their savings, they begin to pull them out. But we know specifically that no bank has enough money on hand to be able to pay out all of their customers. They use it all. They use fractional reserve banking, something that I've mentioned on here, and it's pretty simple by now. Most of you know that. Two of the country's biggest banks have applied to the Greek central bank for emergency liquidity assistance. Right there, they need to print up the money in order to have enough to give to their clients because they're pulling it out. That's a bank run. They're trying to hide this information. Loans needed to keep the bank running while they have a funding shortfall. That's where the scheme really comes into place. Now, this is the big news. Greek savers and businesses have been pulling money out of the banks at a rate not seen since the peak of the country's debt crisis in 2012, as fears about the potential default or exit from the euro sent tremors through the markets. So here we are at a crisis level that is occurring in Greece. The individuals are basically pulling their out at this rapid rate as the unemployment is soaring, as all of these other factors are in place. Right now in Greece, we have youth unemployment at 50%, a level that I believe is the highest in the Eurozone area. So they're in big trouble right now. So let's move on right here where they talk about the elections that are going to occur. This was an opportunity that they never were supposed to have. Samaras, the prime minister, had hoped to battle on and see through the austerity plan that they should reduce Greeks' public debt to a mere 110% of GDP by 2020. Essentially, what they want to do is increase taxation. They want to increase austerity on the citizens, and they will not do anything to calm down what has actually caused the problem in the first place. All of the schemes that are caused by the bankers, by the elite, those who control the financial system, are the same ones that are coming up with these plans in order to, quote, save everything. You can't bring the country's debt down dramatically simply by creating these packages, simply by bailing out banks and all of the other schemes that they've been doing over the past few years. It's not true. It's not going to work. And quite frankly, is just going to make everything worse. Now, one party will say that they have the solution. The other party will say that they have the solution. But none of these solutions in general are ever sufficient in order to stop what's happening. When you have the IMF running your nation, it's never going to be okay. And what we have here, when we have a bank run, we always undoubtedly, invariably run into a situation of civil unrest and the riots begin. So let's go into Venezuela right now. I've been covering this since it's been erupting. You're looking at a nation that has over 60% inflation. It is destroying the wealth of the individuals and they are suffering badly. I've showed you here how they need simple things like soap and detergent, and they're waiting in lines as their government controls every little piece of their lives. Venezuela protest city on edge as the economic crisis worsens. And just wanted to show you how bad things can get when the simple things in life are unattainable. Now, they could be because of a shortage, this could be because of an economic crisis, could be because of a war, but let's get into more details right here, where we have the food prices being too expensive. This is information out of the US talking about the CPI. The index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs increased 0.3% as the index for beef and veal continued to rise. So we have a big issue here when we look at the most important thing, our food prices, and they are consistently rising. Yes, when we look at certain factors, we have a deflation that is occurring. When you look at real wages, there's a deflation. But at the same time, simultaneously, we have food prices that are rising to a record high right here. They said meats, poultry, fish, and eggs hit a record high in December. This isn't something that just multiplies in a single month. There isn't that much inflation, but we can see how there is definite inflation every single year over year. This is a very big problem, even when they suggest that we're running into a deflationary environment in many ways, and that's why they continue printing money, because this reason here. So let's move on to another connected factor, and that is 2014 was the most expensive year for electricity ever. So you can see this chart that goes up, and you can see over the last few decades, it's practically been a straight line upward, but the general consensus here is that every year your electricity prices will rise, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. So we're going to move on right here to what I wrote in my book about this, about the CPI, saying that the real rate of inflation is certainly much higher than what they project to us. The Fed uses what they call, quote unquote, core inflation, which excludes energy and food prices. By definition, that is intentional propaganda. And that's what I'm trying to tell you here, is that we look at their statistics that they're giving us, and if we just take it at face value, if we read the headlines of the news articles and not really look in deeper, we're never going to get to the truth. Core inflation doesn't include the most important factors, being food and energy prices. Look at the electricity rising. Yes, we have gas prices that have declined, but in order to heat your home, you are going to have this situation that it is going to be more expensive this year than it was last year. And we see how year over year, that's a big problem. This right here, VC firms rain down cash on tech startups. Is bubble brewing? ABC News shows this. Cash rained down on startups in 2014 as venture capitalists poured a whopping $50 billion into new U.S. companies. So we have a lot of investment. That should be a good thing, right? That's levels not seen since before the dot-com bubble burst in 2001. Certain areas in the stock market are heating up to dramatic levels. We have not seen these in the same way when we talk about PE ratios. I talked about the stock market being overvalued compared to any other stock market around the world right now. So these statistics are real, they are the truth, and it is something to be concerned about. When I suggest to you that all of the dominoes will fall, you need to realize how important that is, because specifically we have one nation that may fall, and you think, at least the media tries to project it, that they have really these protections in place that are there to stop it from spreading. But there is a viral contagion that occurs, and we saw what happened in the financial crisis a few years ago, how bad things got when it was supposedly the subprime mortgage crisis, and one thing led to another, and the whole world was affected more or less. So then we get into this issue right here out of Reuters. Administration officials said on Saturday the president would propose higher capital gains taxes, new fees on large financial firms, and other measures to raise $320 billion for programs and tax breaks aimed at the middle class. So let's get into this right here. We have Obama. Obviously, the statistics have shown that in every situation, things are worse. You look at the amount of taxation people are receiving, and that is definitely worse. You look at real wages, they've continued to decline. You look at the debt, it's been increasing. So in every category, we see things are getting worse. So now he's at the end of his presidency, unless the emperor gets a third term. But regardless, he's at the end of his presidency and needs to show a little bit of goodness here. So instead of actually reducing taxation, he's proposing that they're going to increase capital gains taxes. And what this is going to do is hurt those in the upper middle class, those individuals who own small businesses, who do employ people. They're going to have to lay people off. They're never going to impose real strict fees and regulations on the financial firms, the big financial firms, because we saw what happened during 2008. They were in trouble because of their gambling, and all they did was pump more money into them. We know specifically that this is a lie. So we can expect increased taxation and yet more of the same. And then right here, how this all connects in out of the Washington Post. For the first time in at least 50 years, a majority of public school students across the country are considered low income. And this goes to show you how the new generation of individuals is unfortunately suffering. And this will go into the next generation as well as things continue to decline. As the crisis worsens, we will see how bad things will get. If you found this video informative, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And of course, become a subscriber on here if you're not already. On YouTube, I'm always giving out, basically every single day, posting out information. I always want to hear from you guys. You can always email me at david@themoneygps.com if you just want to share something with me, or you just want to get on my email to be able to contact me in the future. But definitely the best place to get me is on the insiders. I always empty out that inbox before replying to anybody else. And essentially you get on the insiders by going to themoneygps.com, scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.